Stories of horror, greed, and murder. Rumors of ghosts and witches. Cultures and creatures from the deepest bayous, highest mountains, and the thickest of woods. These are the tales and legends from the darkest places of the world, weaved together through the tapestry of time. This is Waking Ribbons. Lewis Allen would have turned 100 on April 25th of this year. Instead, he was murdered on January 31st of 1964. Lewis Allen was born and raised in the town of Liberty in Amite County, Mississippi in 1919. It was as rural an area as you could possibly get, with a concentration on agriculture, things like cotton, dairy farming, and the like. The majority of citizens in this area at that time were black, and a good many of them were business owners. But that's not to say it was the land of milk and honey. Many black citizens had left the area in the 1940s for jobs up north, and to escape the cruelty of Jim Crow laws that were very nearly non-existent in the northern United States. Allen grew up in the care of the HEREIN family, a prosperous white family in the area. This instilled in Lewis the knowledge that he was anyone else's equal and was not afraid to live that way. In 1943, at 23 years of age, he joined the United States Army, and when he returned, he started work as a logger and as a farmhand, as many men did at that time. Allen got married and started a family with his wife, Elizabeth. They had 4 children together. He was said to always wear a hat because that's what a sophisticated man did. Allen, because of his albeit shaky influence with the white community, was eventually able to start a logging business and build it up enough to have his own farm with produce and cattle. Lewis Allen became a respectable man in the area and was respected to a point by everyone, no matter their color. Unfortunately, there were some people who still saw anyone with more melanin in their skin than theirs as somehow less than worthy of respect. And unfortunately, it was those who were also in power at the time. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or the SNCC, was founded in the 1960s by independent student-led groups all over the South. They acted by holding sit-ins and nonviolent demonstrations in public places to show the injustice of the Jim Crow laws of the time that enforced the segregation and discrimination of the black citizens of America. At the time, segregation laws were present in other states in the country besides the American South, but were more prevalent in the South. This organization's aim was to expose the inequality to the world as well as the federal government. The responses from the local governments, the freedom rides, and the marches from leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. helped them in that. In the summer of 1961, Herbert Lee lived in Liberty, Mississippi. He was a member of the SNCC and was one of the few black citizens there that had a vehicle. He and Robert Moses, the SNCC field secretary, would drive around the county trying to get local black citizens to register to vote. At the time, it was difficult, to put it mildly, for black and poor white citizens to vote because of things like poll taxes, literacy tests, and grandfather clauses that stopped them from even trying to register. So, if you have ever been in Mississippi in the months of June, July, and August, you know the heat and the humidity, and you know that what they did for the community was no easy feat. From house to house, neighborhood to neighborhood, church to sweltering church, they went speaking on the power of the voter. At that time, Amite County had no black voters. The Ku Klux Klan was most pervasive in this area at that time, and for all we know, it still is. For this reason, only a few brave people stepped up to make the effort to bring the black voters to the polls. According to the website snccdigital.org, the following happened. Quote, on September 25, 1961, Herbert Lee arrived at the Westbrook Cotton Gin outside the town of Liberty with a full load of cotton in his truck. There he was, confronted by E.H. Hurst, a member of the Mississippi State Legislature. Hurst approached Lee with a gun in his hand, saying he wanted to talk. I won't talk to you unless you put the gun down, Lee said. Hurst and Lee, who had been boyhood friends, had been arguing over Lee's involvement with the SNCC. And in front of more than a dozen witnesses, including Lewis Allen, Hurst shot Lee in the head, killing him. The day after Lee's death, a coroner's inquest was held, and the witnesses all declared that Lee had threatened Hurst with a tire iron, The two black witnesses, Lewis Allen and a local reverend, confirmed, under instruction, Hearst's version of events, ending the inquest. Allen later reached out to Moses and childhood friend E.W. Steptoe to tell them that the testimony he gave at the inquest was false. As he later told John Doerr at the Department of Justice, the courtroom had been packed with armed men, and he was afraid for his family if he revealed the truth. End quote. After speaking with his friend Julian Bond, a founding member of the SNCC, he was encouraged to go to Jackson, Mississippi and speak to the FBI about what he witnessed. Even though if word got out that Allen spoke to the feds, Allen and his entire family would be in mortal danger. Hesitantly and against his better judgment, Lewis Allen went to Jackson and talked to the FBI and the United States Commission on Civil Rights. He asked for protection for him and his family in exchange for his truthful testimony. The FBI and the Justice Department claimed that it could not give him that protection. So, without it, Allen repeated his false testimony from before. But the rumor mill did what it does, and it exposed that Allen did in fact go to speak with the Justice Department in Jackson. Liberty's white citizens spread the word, and Allen lost many of his customers for his logging business. It got so bad that as Allen and some friends went to the Amite County Courthouse in August 1962 to register to vote, they were shot at by an unknown assailant. The worst was yet to come. Allen received death threats for him and his family. He reported these to the FBI. The FBI was told not to notify the Amite Sheriff County office. However, they did so anyway, as the Bureau claimed it had limited jurisdiction over civil rights disputes. Already a memo had been circulated that, quote, Allen was to be killed and the local sheriff was involved in the plot, end quote. On a side note, murder and conspiracy to commit murder was within their jurisdiction, so the statement that they had no authority sounds like a cop-out, but that's just my opinion. At any rate, this caused Allen to become the target of continuous harassment by the Amite County Sheriff Daniel Jones, resulting in multiple beatings of Allen by the sheriff, once causing his jaw to be broken by a flashlight. In an attempt to help his friend, Robert Moses wrote a letter to the Assistant Attorney General John Doerr about the plot to kill Allen, quote, by the sheriff and 7 other men. Sheriff Jones was apparently the son of a high-ranking exalted Cyclops in Liberty's chapter of the KKK, of which Jones himself was a member, according to documents in the FBI. After Allen filed a complaint with the FBI, an all-white jury was convened, as black citizens were not allowed to sit on a jury, and summarily dismissed the charges on the sheriff. In February 1963, a friend of Allen's and civil rights activist, Leo McKnight, and his family died suspiciously in a house fire. The local black community was convinced that it was an act of murder. Allen had stayed in Liberty not only for his wife and children, but his elderly parents lived there and depended on his care. So, Sheriff Jones again arrested Allen in late 1963, falsely accusing him of writing a bad check and carrying a concealed weapon. Eventually, in 3 weeks' time, the local chapter of the NAACP raised the bail money to have Allen released. 2 months after his arrest, in 1964, Allen's mother passed away. At that time, Allen made plans to move in with his brother, who was living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a far cry from Liberty, Mississippi. Allen was afraid for his life, and rightfully so. On the night of January 31st, 1964, according to his son Hank, Lewis was coming home, entering through the, quote, gap, the gate in the barbed wire fence that Lewis had built to keep the family's chickens, mules, and other animals nearby. Quote, somebody was layin', over there's a good hiding spot, that they was layin' in there covered, so I'm thinking that's where the shots came from, right over there. End quote. In a 2011 interview with CBS 60 Minutes, Hank points to a small culvert in the distance. Hank was the one to find his father dead. He had been shot twice in the head by a shotgun. Hank had also indicated that his father was shot first in the hand, then after trying to hide under his logging truck, was shot to death. According to the Jackson Free Press, quote, Hank Allen and his cousin, John Horton, drove east along Highway 24. The two young men, 17 and 16 years old, respectively, had attended a party in Gloucester that Friday, January 31st, 1964, and were heading back to Hank's family's home, a few miles outside the small town of Liberty in southwest Mississippi. Hank made the left turn into the Allen family's driveway and drove his '54 DeSoto up to the gap. Lewis's bob-tailed Ford logging truck was sitting just outside the gap. The engine wasn't running, but the headlights were on. The son wondered why his father would block the driveway. He got out of the DeSoto and called to his father. Hearing no response, he walked around the truck, climbed into the cab, and tried to start the engine. The battery was dead. As he climbed down from the cab, he stepped on something. It was his father's right hand. Hank pulled his DeSoto back and shone its headlights underneath the truck. Lewis was lying face down, his left hand covering holes in his face and head, like he was trying to hold in his brains." End quote. A coroner's jury was assembled by the sheriff at the Allen house the next morning. They determined that Allen had indeed been murdered by, quote, "an assailant or assailants unknown." During the investigation by members of multiple civil rights organizations, Sheriff Jones repeatedly stated that Allen was not part of any civil rights group and that he had no idea why Allen would have been murdered. No one at all has ever been arrested for the murder. In fact, the death of Lewis Allen was hardly investigated at all. That is, until 1994, when Plater Robinson, a history professor at Tulane University in New Orleans, Louisiana, began investigating the murder. According to an interview he conducted and recorded on tape, a Mr. Alfred Knox, that was a preacher in Liberty, stated that his son Archie Weatherspoon was ordered by Sheriff Jones to kill Allen. And when the time came, Weatherspoon refused to pull the trigger, so Sheriff Jones himself did the deed. In 2007, the FBI announced that the Allen murder case was one of those that would be reopened in their attempt to solve cases from the civil rights era of the 1950s and 1960s. The investigation, as of 2011, consisted of one part-time investigator. As of 2019 in this video, there has not been any news on the progress of the investigation. In 2011, however, the former County Sheriff Daniel Jones was interviewed by 60 Minutes, and invoked the Fifth Amendment, refusing to talk about the murder or anything relating to it, including any confirmation that he was a member of the KKK. He did say that he was not involved in the murder, and when told that he could take a polygraph to clear things up, he said, quote, "Well, then it ain't gonna get cleared up." 2 years after that interview, Jones died, possibly of cancer, without ever assisting the investigation publicly with any information. So, as of now, the case is cold. No leads have been released to the public. No new information is being shared, likely because the killer and the majority of those involved in the plot are all dead. I wish I could leave you with a glimmer of hope, and there was. For years after, the murders of those like Lewis Allen and Herbert Lee were used as fuel to the fire for civil rights. But that doesn't mean the fight is over. Discrimination, racism, sexism, homophobia, and xenophobia is still alive and well today. Civil rights are human rights, and hopefully we can all learn for the sake of Lewis Allen. Thanks everybody for watching. I'm sorry it's been a while since my last video. I appreciate that you came back to watch. A huge shout out to Miss Antoinette Harrell and her coverage of a bit of this story. She was a big inspiration to make this video. Please make sure you visit her YouTube channel and follow her and her work with nurturing our roots there. A link to her channel is in the description. If you found this video interesting and learned from its content, please click the thumbs up. If you want to see more, make sure you subscribe. And if you want notifications, remember to click the bell icon for future alerts. Y'all take care, and I'll see y'all real soon.